Greetings, travelers. It is October 29th, 2018, and this is the Greetings From podcast. My name is Rebecca Faye. I am joined, as always, by my two good friends. First, Mojave, Mo Problems, Miss Olivia Quinn.
Heyo! Who's ready to go talk about Fallout New Vegas for like the 100th time?
It never stops being one of the best games, really, though.
You all ready for it?
I'm always ready for it. I'm also joined as well by Don't You Dare Go Hollow, Mr. Tyler Smith.
Yes, praise the sun, children. Praise.
Did we all get our Solaire amiibos?
I never told you guys, but I did. I did get mine.
Oh, you did. You did get it. Oh, I'm so
yeah.
glad.
Sorry, I totally went silent on it, but you both got it before me, though.
We're the chosen ones. I still haven't played Dark Souls, but I know who Solaire is, and I love him so much.
Olivia, I really, really want to play Dark Souls with you, and just kind of run alongside with you and help you out and do things. Because Rebecca, I'm sure this feels the same way, but it's just you need to experience the game.
I have,
yeah.
Or Bloodborne at the very least. I don't know. They're the same game, but they're not. So
I have that completionist vibe where I'm like, oh, I should just go get a PS3 and play Demon Souls. That's what I should do. No. That's what my brain tells me.
So
start there.
I definitely want to play Demon Souls, but I'm not. I don't want to go down that trek. Dark Souls is good enough for me.
I have been actively looking at PS3s on the Facebook Craigslist thing. I've been like, I could get this. I could get.
Oh, I mean,
it's a dark path.
We could bounce my PS backwards compatible PS3 back and forth if you want, but that's a hefty shipping fee, and then you have to deal with shipping.
I'm gonna deal with this random guy who's selling his PS3 on the side of the road for $100, and I'm gonna make it work. And
I'm sure that's not shady at all.
It's been that and a PS Vita. I've been trying to buy one of those as well because I'm
sorry.
Human.
What year is it?
I know.
Didn't they just say they were not going to make Vita games anymore?
Yeah,
no,
what
they
happened?
Discontinued it. It's done. It's over.
I know, and that's the part that
it was over for a long time.
Now that it's dead, I need one. It's gonna get harder to find as time goes on, so I might as well grab it now, right? You're with me on this,
yeah?
Just like the Amiibos.
Well, I guess the Amiibos have not quite yet outlived their usefulness, at least as a very nice shelf object, makeshift manger.
I'd like to make a new feature on the show, and it's called Olivia's Amiibo Corner. Actually, I can't have that
Olivia's
name.
Manger,
I can't take that name. I just realized that I'm stealing that from Griffin McElroy. No, I'm going to have my Amiibo shelf. Yeah. And so, just to give you guys an update on the new Amiibos I've got here, I got a Detective Pikachu since we've last spoken. I got me a Solaire. I got a Mario Fight Mode. And I got the Wind Waker, Link, and Zelda 2-pack on its way.
Okay, so for people who don't know Olivia, she has a problem with Amiibos. She has so many Amiibos. It's not funny, but it is funny. But you just have a lot. Well,
a beautiful collection.
That's debatable because Solaire is my first Amiibo, and I feel like I've gotten by pretty fine with.
Hold on,
no
I'm
Amiibo.
Sorry. Did you just say out loud that Solaire is your first Amiibo?
It really is.
What year is it? 2018, and you have just damn son.
I know. So here's the thing. I never, the N64 was literally my first and only Nintendo console, other than handheld or whatever. But I didn't own a Wii U. I didn't own a Wii. I didn't own a GameCube. I didn't have anything use an Amiibo with. My friends had them, and it was well, I'm not gonna buy a little plastic figurine for a console that I don't have or that I can't use. What's the point on that?
Oh, Tyler.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? Listen, okay.
I have
Amiibos
Amiibos for games I don't even have.
This Amiibo nightmare for me started when I got a Switch, and I was like, I'll just get the Link one because he works with Breath of the Wild, and that started me down a dark path. And you will join me now that you have Solaire.
I mean, I definitely would love plenty more, if specifically for Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild, so I could just have the fucking shit in the game. But I'm not gonna go drop. I don't know how much is that, $150 for all of those Amiibos? No,
$150
or more. I don't know. I don't keep up with the Amiibo trade market, guys.
My sweet summer child.
I mean, Amiibos are bad. I will just to break the facade here. Amiibos are a bad thing.
Well, yeah, wasn't there that one guy who Wasn't that one guy who literally cornered the market on like Princess Peach or something stupid? And like he bought out all the copies so that no one could have them ever. I forget who it was,
I hope
but it
this
was
is
some
real.
guy.
It does speak to the problems of Amiibos being
And he literally pre-ordered all of them and like went out to stores and bought them. And so like literally no one in the world but this one kid has this certain Amiibo. It's a Smash Bro Amiibo. I thought it was Princess Peach,
I
but
think
it's from the
Rebecca
Mario
has
universe.
a Princess Peach Amiibo. Rebecca,
Anyway.
did you pre-order all the Peach Amiibos?
No, I have 2 Peaches. I have Smash Peach, and then I have like Super Mario World Peach or something like that. I don't know. I'm pretty sure there's like at least 9 other Peaches that I don't have. I'll tell you, the one that was impossible to get was Rosalina. I really struggled to find a Rosalina. I think the one that I have maybe is from Japan. I don't know.
Which Rosalina is it? Because I actually just picked up a Rosalina for like the Mario themed Rosalina like a couple months ago at a secondhand store.
It might be that one. I'm not sure is there more than one?
There is a Rosalina for Smash and a Rosalina for the Mario series.
Oh, you know what? It was Rosalina. Hate buys Rosalina and Luma Amiibo in bulk, so fans can't have them.
That's
this
the one
is
I have.
2009 or 2015.
Rebecca.
I had to. It wasn't me. I had to get mine from Japan. Don't hate me.
So, like, that's what happened. I mean, like, obviously they did reprints or you were able to get yours, but, like, for a limited time, literally this guy had so many Rosalina Amiibos.
I
have
derailed this conversation. We shouldn't talk
he
about
spent
Amiibos anymore. They're bad.
$35,000.
Well, I feel like we could probably do an entire cast on why Amiibos are terrible.
Right.
But I have to I just have to squeeze in there this thought that I've had in my head, Olivia, since you showed us the picture of your Amiibo shelf, which is, I seriously cannot get over how large Detective Pikachu is.
It's
it cracks me up when I see that one.
Just to paint a visual image here, I have all of my Animal Crossing Amiibos surrounding my Detective Pikachu. So they're kind of worshipping him, and Solaire is trying to attract more of the followers to his side.
Oh, no. There's like a religious battle going on. It's like civilization. We're trying to convert
Solaire's the man of the people.
Mm-hmm.
There will be a civil war. Solaire
He's a
will
man
rise
not
up.
entitled to the sweat of his son. Of the sun.
You know what I
I thought you were
like
going to talk
for
about
the next...
sums, and I'm like, yeah, I could talk about sums. Those are my...
No,
You
I'm
should stop.
I'm just doing that thing where I try to do Bioshock quotes for everything.
There's
I would
always a
like
Detective Pikachu, and
Nintendo's
there's always a
next
Solaire.
Amiibo for the Dark Souls to be like a silver knight or a black knight. I think that'd be cool. But
I think this is the
that
last
won't
year of the
happen.
Amiibo. I think they're going to die this year. After Smash
maybe.
Bros. Comes out,
We'll see.
I think it's done for.
probably.
Rip. This is my preemptive rip. My predictions.
Well, I mean, we could always hope for the future, not unlike Fallout, in which money is no longer money, but instead caps, and maybe our dystopian future currency will just be rare amiibos.
God, I wish. I'm ready. Get rid of this fiat
I'm
currency.
so
It's all about
fucking
amiibos and
poor.
cryptocurrencies.
Amiibo standard.
The amiibo coin.
Yeah.
Are you gonna put your cryptocurrency on your Amiibo and like take it with you, and that's what it is? And you just like swipe your Amiibo, and you're like, I paid for this.
This is what Satoshi always wanted. Nintendo
Yeah.
knew.
This amiibo kills fascists.
Okay. Yeah. Speaking of fascists, Fallout New California has been my new obsession recently, and I think in
This is a mod, right?
this is a mod. Yeah.
Okay.
I think in other episodes we've talked about unreleased episodes. We've talked about modding Fallout New Vegas, which has been a couple month endeavor for me, where I've got like 40 or 50 mods now on my installation of New Vegas, and it's become a nightmare that's unstable and everything's crashing all the time, but I'm loving it so much.
Sounds like a mod.
Yeah, pretty much. I think I'm causing...
Sounds like New Vegas.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you want a game... Okay, so New California, it's a mod of New Vegas. It's set between the events of Fallout 2 and Fallout New Vegas. It kind of centers on the conflicts involved of like the New California Republic kind of getting set up before the events of New Vegas itself. So there's a bunch of different factions. You're playing as somebody who is coming out of a vault and kind of entering into this new wasteland and trying to figure out, hey, where do I fit in this world? What's going on? And you're like kind of an outsider. So you're a tribal person who gets brought into the vault. You're kind of an outsider of the vault, and then you have to make some decisions about like, hey, what am I going to do after I leave this vault? And the kind of inciting event is that a crazy fascist football coach decides to overthrow the overseer in your vault. And in my playthrough, I had to fight against him, and he ended up setting off a nuclear explosion that destroyed my vault, and now I'm all in the wilderness.
Well,
Oh my God.
this sounds like Fallout 76. What is this?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, I think this mod, it's been in development for somewhere between 6 to 7 years at this point.
Oh wow!
I know it rivals, I think, what I've seen in Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas, like the best parts of those games. The set piece moments, especially at the end of New Vegas, where you're fighting, on the bridge or on the dam itself. The opening of this game has moments similar to that, where you're like outrunning, like just I'm going to spoil the first 2 hours of this game because that's really all I've played of it. I haven't finished it yet, but I have done a little bit of research about how it kind of plays out. But you start out in the vault, you kind of get to choose, your professions, and that will really like your focus in the game. And then there's something like 5 or 6 professions that you can play through even in the beginning of the game. So it's like, oh, for me, I was a repair person. So then I became like a janitor in the vault. And my job was to like go around and try to fix things. But I'd watch some playthroughs of people who had a science focus, and they had to play a whole little mini game about how to fix the core mainframe in the vault itself. So even from the beginning of the game, you have a lot of different choices. And then once you get out of the vault, it's like a holy set piece moment of the vault exploding. You have to kind of find your way out of there. It's really, really cool. I really would recommend, if you like New Vegas, go ahead and check out this game. I feel like I've been talking for a minute. Do you guys have any questions about the mod? Like, what were your kind of, when you hear mod, what do you think?
Well, one thing that I am most curious about is that, at least in terms of how Fallout has gone as a series, I know Fallout 1 and 2 are pretty well beloved because I think of maybe the way that they handled the concept of the apocalypse and sort of the what the world was like afterward. I know New Vegas is very highly praised. And then I feel like the series maybe started to derail around Fallout 3, Fallout 4, maybe Super Fallout 4. So I'm curious, from the perspective of somebody who's played New Vegas, have you played Fallout 2? Like, do you feel like this bridges that gap in a way that speaks to the sort of the original iterations of the series, or is it more of the sort of Bethesda take?
So I think this mod veers closer to the Fallout 2 New Vegas kind of territory, where it's a little more moral ambiguity, really focused on your choices. Like, it seems like every character is going to have, that I've met in this game, has like a 5-minute scripted speech about like, hey, your choices matter. Like, things go bad for you. I haven't played 2. I started 1 recently, actually, Fallout 1. And I've watched some playthroughs of 2, so I kind of have a pretty rough idea on, hey, here's how that game differs from, 3 and 4, more the Bethesda take on those games. And I've also been playing through, I've just been in a Bethesda Fallout fever dream because I've been playing Skyrim a lot, and I think the differences between Skyrim and New Vegas and this mod are pretty apparent, because in Skyrim it's like you could do everything, you could control every faction, you could get all of the abilities, whereas in this mod, the first 5 minutes you're immediately shut out from 5 different options depending on the build of your character. Like, it's really important that you choose a specialization, or you won't be able to get like 90% of the dialogue options in this game, which I think is really cool. Like, they give a shit about like your character build, and they want you to make hard decisions, which I don't think that's Bethesda's focus most times.
Yeah, I would agree. Do you find the quality of the mod to be pretty good? I know that there's been a lot of large-scale pushes to do mods for just pretty much anything coming from Bethesda. Like, I know that they were planning on redoing, I wish I could remember the name of them now. It was like Skyfall or something like that, where they were redoing.
Yes.
That's a James Bond movie, sorry.
Is it like Skywind?
Skywind, I believe.
Yeah.
There's another one that they were doing, Oblivion. They've been doing parts of Oblivion in Skyrim's editor. So I'm curious, does it feel like this is a Source game? Like, how everything that was made on the Source engine feels the sort of the same because all of the assets were the same, or is it more bespoke?
So definitely more on the bespoke edge. This game looks miles, like the mod itself and the new textures that they include are miles above what you get in New Vegas. And then they also have a bunch of recommended mods, stuff like Project Nevada that fits into this game. So it's a lot of mods on mods on mods, creating this like really, it doesn't look like New Vegas anymore. Like, this game looks, I would say it's comparable to Fallout 4 on super low res, like on the worst settings. I would say, yeah, this game matches up with that in my mind. And I think a lot of the work that they put into this, and especially in like the level design. So there's a portion of the game where you're kind of walking through, or in the intro, you're kind of walking through some underground kind of like enclosed catwalks. And there is the thing that's supposed to guide you, it doesn't really give you any like, hey, here's where you should go. There's just a bunch of little like firecrackers left on the ground, and it wants you to follow those. And you don't really get that in the game. Like I wouldn't really get that in New Vegas. You know what I mean? Like you don't really get that kind of, diegetic, hey, here's the path you should be following. You can always break off from that, but it's going to be way harder. So they try to give you some, like the level design, everything in that game feels like it's coming from a professional who is really trying to speak to, hey, here's what you should be doing, but it's valid, so you can do whatever the hell you want, which I think is cool. Like, I don't think that, looking at Skyrim, there really isn't that, like, personal touch sometimes in that game, in my opinion.
Yeah. That's pretty incredible. And I would say also quite lucky that Bethesda has not come with the long arm of the law and tried to, like, DCMA or whatever, take down stuff.
I don't know. Bethesda's pretty cool with their modding community. Like, they kind of get it or understand or like learned early on when people started modding Morrowind that like, hey, they have this entire community and they love people playing their games and creating things for it. And a lot of people who have done mods for Bethesda, if they've done them really well, they've been hired on to like actually become part of Bethesda. So hopefully, I'm sure, but someone at Bethesda is looking at them and being like, "Oh wow, like I want to contact who created this mod because it's pretty spectacular. We could use another person like that on our team."
Well,
I'm not going to say that
they did run into some legal issues with the name itself of like New California. I guess
Oh really?
There was a board game, a Fallout board game that came out a couple years ago, and they're actually released an expansion to it. And I think the name New California is the name of the expansion or something similar to that. But apparently, like you were saying, Tyler, they kind of worked it out and made it so they could still release it with that name. So
Yeah.
I know there was some scuttlebutt there about like, hey, they had a conversation about changing the name. So just to kind of clarify that, because I know it was originally called Project Brazil, then it switched to New California. So I don't know the exact story, but I do remember hearing some rumblings about that. But still pretty cool.
Yeah. I feel like the only time I've ever seen Bethesda actually go after someone really hard was when it was that Notch's Scroll game.
I was thinking about that as well.
Yeah,
You brought that
and
up.
like it was just like, okay, like I mean, I get it. Like in Bethesda's defense, I get why you want to go after that because Scrolls is such a huge thing. I can't even remember if Notch won that or not. Or if Bethesda
I think they kind
won.
of came to like an arbitration thing. From what I understand in my day job, I talk to a lot of attorneys who do stuff like IP law. And the thing I always hear is that, and I'm not an attorney, so this isn't legal advice or anything, but if you have a brand name, you need to at least protect it in some manner to kind of lock down your IP. And if you're not protecting it, then it kind of dilutes your IP and there's a chance you could lose your trademark. So that's kind of what I always heard. That seems a little ridiculous to me, but I mean, if that's that could be just be the American legal system.
I guess it does send a message to like even if they like literally if their intention was not even to win or whatever, it was just to be like, hey, don't do this. That sends out a message to other people who might be thinking like, I want to call it Elder Cards or something, like
I would play Elder Cards.
like they understand like getting that close to their someone's trademark, they might go after you next. So, and even if they, like going to court is super expensive. No indie game dev ever could afford it, except unless you're Notch because you have billions and billions of money just laying around. But it's so I could understand why they did it. It's fine. It's over. I don't remember exactly what happened. It happened so long ago. It feels time. How does it work?
One thing I did want to point out about this game was the amount of Easter eggs I've already found in my first couple hours of playing through it. I went in the beginning of the game, you can have like a free roam mode where you can walk around the vault, and then you immediately leave the vault. So they kind of have a lot of like spaces where they'll put little Easter eggs in it. There was one, it's like the entrance to the vault actually has a bunch of what seems to be developer pictures, just kind of pasted all up on there that you can pick up and get into your Pip-Boy, which I thought was really cool. Yeah, and there's a bunch of just like random shit like scattered around the game. Like they talk about this one like crystal robot that they found in the wasteland that's like, I was like, oh, this is gonna be like a cool plot point, and then I'm walking by and it's dead in the first 5 minutes. So I'm like, hey, they wrote a lot of lore for stuff that they're maybe not going to retouch on, which I thought was really, really neat. So props to them.
I'm curious, just since you're mentioning the Easter eggs, how is the fun factor? And I don't mean that in the sense of, like, is it fun to play? But one thing that always really struck me about New Vegas is that it's this perfect balance of, this is a Fallout game, and also this is the wackiest shit ever in the history of the universe. Like, the fact that there's an entire gang of Elvis impersonators who worship him like a god, and just the casinos and stuff were all, like, there was just something that was always really inherently kind of, like, hilarious about the whole game, and how the plot is that you just get shot in the face and you're on, like, a revenge quest, and that's the whole point of the game. How do you feel that compares to New California? Like, is it more serious in tone, or does it kind of maintain that sort of background, like, we know this is kind of silly?
So in the hours that I played of it, it did seem pretty, like, self-serious in terms of the actual story itself. I did choose the Wild Wasteland perk, which I don't know if it actually does anything in that mod, but there is a pretty funny moment where, like, you're like a football player. Like, that's how the game starts off, is you, like, playing a game of football, and then your family just kind of, like, bails on you and isn't there for you. So then you go and meet up with them, and they're playing a game of D&D, like knockoff D&D. And they're talking, the characters are talking if you just kind of sit there for a while, and they'll start making references to how Obsidian didn't include, like, a dice rolling animation. And so they couldn't include that in the actual D&D game, which I thought was pretty funny. So I think there is a little wink and a nod there for a lot of stuff. That's
fun. This sounds really, really cool. I'll have to get my hands on it. I love Vegas, so I'm excited that somebody did so much with it.
Yeah, I haven't... I actually have never touched a Fallout game. For whatever reason. I love Bethesda, but I just I fell into, I should say, the Elder Scrolls side of things. I never done, and probably the reason why I avoided it is because it's guns and it's like a post-apocalyptic future, and I'm like, all the fucking video games have that shit, and I'm just like, I don't want to go. But I might go and actually play it, because I learned today that all of the shelters, all of the vaults, they have their own themes. It's like whoever Vault Tech it was. Like, I didn't know that. I just thought they were just like fucking, I don't know, bomb shelters for whatever. But like, for other people who maybe also don't know this, I don't know. Probably they do, because they're cooler than me. But like, every vault has its theme. So like, let's say there's a vault and it's all gardeners or whatever. Or like, Rebecca, I think you mentioned something about Elvis. That vault was probably literally like, they had all of these Elvis pictures in the vault, and like, people just started worshiping Elvis for no reason. It's just, or like, they take all the mobsters. I heard this example. They took like all the mobsters in the world or whatever, and like put them in one vault just to see like what would happen. And it's just a really interesting thing, I thought, for that universe. I didn't know. I literally just thought it was it's an RPG. You're just this dude who emerged from a vault because there's been an apocalyptic fallout, and you're just like, I don't know, exploring the world and the pre or post-apocalyptic world now, and like, that's all it was. And I was like, it's not really interesting to me.
I think the funny thing, like, Fallout's wacky as hell, and I think one of the things that I gravitated to was that it's like if the 1950s never ended, and then it just kept going. Yeah,
the retrofuturism, because it was about. I think the main conceit was that they had never invented a smaller transistor chip. Isn't that?
I think so.
I think that was
like, everything's
what it was.
Like cathodes and radio tubes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I think that whole conceit is very silly and very fun. And like this game, I think this mod itself talks a lot about like, hey, the Enclave, which is like the remnants of the United States government, is still out there, and they're still planning, and they're still trying to take back, the world. And that's kind of like the inciting event for this game, is they're kind of pulling the strings. So I think that if you're into 1950s Americana and really morbid humor, Fallout might be the game for you, Tyler.
Yeah, I think I have New Vegas 3 and the latest one, only because like through Steam it was just like on sale, and I was like, I'll buy it because everyone says it's great, but I've never touched it. So yeah.
Nice. Well, I think just like a final tip, one of the things I wish I had known going into this mod was that you need to specialize. So you get like in the game, you only get so many points.
So I've
just
heard.
Make sure you pick something and stick with it. Don't be an all-around person.
Yeah, which is really weird to me because, if you take its opposite, it's Elder Scrolls, they do encourage you to be an all-around person. And like, it's just so weird coming from Bethesda, you figured, they're two different game ideologies would like bleed into each other a little bit, but they don't. They're completely separate. So,
Yeah.
But yeah, I've definitely heard several times that if you don't have a certain level in language or speech or whatever it is in Fallout, that like you won't have the dialogue options, and like you could literally I don't want to spoil the ending of the one video game, but I just know that if you don't have a high enough language ability or whatever it is to get that unlock for an additional response, like you could potentially like end the world for whatever reason, or like you could sidestep like the last mission or whatever because you can solve it by just talking to someone.
Yeah, you can kind of like talk your way out of it, which
right.
And I think compared to the Elder Scrolls, like Fallout series kind of hates you. Like you don't get to be everyone's hero. You kind of have to make hard choices, and like you don't get to get all the perks or everything like that. And you're like items are breaking. Your like actual weight you're restricted by weight. Like I made a very weak character and I could carry like nothing, and that's kind of fun, I think, to play with that.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, you're right. It's more like Fallout's definitely you creating your character specifically, and it's like maybe you're not the hero necessarily in every situation. Whereas the Elder Scrolls series is literally like, no, you are the hero. You are the center of the universe. So like everything you do reflects that kind of deal. But Fallout doesn't do that. It's just like, you're just whoever you say you are, and that's how it's gonna go.
A dumb courier who has a dark past, and you'll find out. You should play it, Tyler. I would love to hear your Fallout New Vegas.
I should.
Journals.
Yeah, New Vegas, I think, is definitely the one worth starting with, and in part because, like, obviously we live in Arizona, and so it taking place in the Mojave is very familiar,
close to home.
Yeah, so it's definitely close to home in that regard. And also, I just feel like a lot of the faction stuff and a lot of the motivations are a lot more interesting than in some of the other games. Even just comparing the characterization of like, the NCR and the Enclave and the Brotherhood versus sort of how they end up in later parts of the series. So I think New Vegas is definitely... there's a reason why people look to it as kind of the pinnacle of the Fallout series.
I see.
The modern Fallout series, I should say.
Well, I'll just add it to my backlog.
Put it on the fire.
Yeah.
So okay, I'm curious, Tyler. So you've been playing a new game that I don't know anything about, so I don't want to obviously talk about it. But are you backlogging right now, or is this something brand new? I am.
Speaking of backlogs, good segue. I am playing Opus Magnum. It came out last year, end of the last year, like December. And for those of you who don't know, Opus Magnum, it's made by Zachtronics, which I think is a single dude. I forget his name now.
Is it Zach?
Well, yes, I think so. Sorry. I think so, but it's the same guy who made like Space Chem, and Shenzhen IO, and he recently released Exapunks, which apparently is like this, you're a journalist but also a hacker deal going on. I don't know, I have to check it out. But all of his games are like they're very intellectual, meaning like they base with programming or like hacking. Like his new one is hacking. Actually, majority of his are about like hacking. So it's kind of like you're a programmer. He comes from a programming background, so like his games are kind of that primary focus. But he makes it enjoyable to program or like pseudo program. And Opus Magnum, basically, it's about alchemy. You are a recent alchemist graduate who is supposedly a savant at transmutation. And your name, I think, you're a girl. It's a Concordia. Yes, Concordia Lem. And basically, you're just going through these tasks to assemble on this alchemy table, which are like these little hexagons across the whole board, just to make like this one element, let's say. And you have all these options to make it. The goal of the game, it doesn't penalize you. It doesn't. I'm trying to say it doesn't penalize you, but the way that you solve the equation or the problem at hand, it does give you statistics based on other people's builds or like how other people approach to solve the equation. So I think the three metrics that it it goes for is the amount of cycles that it took to make that element, which means like just the time essentially. Not that it's timing you, like how much time it took you to solve it, but rather how long does whatever you made to make the element, how long does that little machine take in cycles to complete. And then I think it measures your gold, because technically gold's not a system, or like it's not a metric or a mechanic within the game. It's just like every part's free essentially for you. Like you don't have to have like 10,000 gold and then you spend it and you have 9,000 gold. That's not how this game works. Like gold's not a real thing. It's just however many parts you use, they cost a certain amount, and so then the more parts you use, the more expensive your build is, and your goal is to kind of cut costs and like make the, what's the least amount of resistance basically to create this element. So like if you use 10 parts and it was 500 gold, but then you found a way to make it with 5 parts, which was like 100 gold, that's obviously a win because you made it more efficient. But the game gets really... It's so simple. The game is so simple, but it can become really complex. And it's a puzzle-solving game, which is right up my alley. But I could literally sit there for like 30 minutes and like make no progress because I'm trying to figure out how to set up this, or how to solve this equation that's presented to me. Because it deals with, elements. And I've only played maybe 3 hours of the game. I haven't gotten super far. I'm staying up on chapter 2 or 3 now. And it gets really complex. Like in just the way that you can solve this equation. And there's no wrong way to do it, honestly. It's just, you could think of it one way and then someone else comes along and is like, oh, actually, if, I could do it this way instead, and it works better, it uses less money or uses less cycles or whatever. It's a really interesting game. I don't know if you two have ever heard it. It sounded like you both didn't know what it was, but I don't know. I feel like you guys have probably seen it around and just didn't know what that was, but
Yeah.
Do you have any experience with it, or?
I've seen a couple playthroughs of this game, and I think one of the most interesting things to me was, and correct me if I'm wrong, but at the end of the level, it actually shows you like your average and like the amount of like resources used and like turns taken to complete, and then the average of other people who have connected to the internet and played the game.
Yes, it does.
That seems really cool to me. It seems like you're competing against yourself and other people to see who can make the most efficient or the most like cost cheap little mechanisms. Have you experienced with that?
Well, yeah. So every time you, so the way the game kind of works is, like I said, you're Cordelia, or what's her name? But you're Concordia, and you're basically assigned these tasks. Like you're just an alchemist, who's just literally like, you're just a graduate trying to find a job, So you're taking up all these odds and ends, and you basically just get a request, and then you have to fill that request out. And it's pretty linear because it's just, you can keep going back. That you just go down the line of requests, and then once you're complete, you get like the next chapter, next page, or whatever. You move on. But point being is that yes, it gets very oh man, what I'm trying to say. Olivia, what was your question again? Sorry.
I guess I was wondering like if you were being motivated by.
Oh, right. So sorry. At the end of every time I completed my equation or whatever, I solved the puzzle, I would then pull up a screen and it would show you 3 graphs, and one would be the cycles it took and where you are and where others were, and like it's basically like just a graph, a chart, a bar graph, and it just shows like what the average is and like kind of where you are, and then it goes for like the cost, and it shows this is how much money people spent, and then here's the average. And so like if someone, if like the average was like $100 or 100 gold pieces or whatever it was, but then like way out there someone used like 1,000 gold, you'll see that 1,000 gold. Like, because as long as one person has done that, it'll be in that little data box, which is really cool. So, and then, it definitely inspires me. I'm like, oh, well, everyone's at like 100 gold, but I use like 200 gold to make this. Like, what can I do? Let me go back and like see if I can tweak this a little bit and get down to where everyone else is at, and just kind of see what how they solved it, you know. And then obviously there are other people who like are brilliant and they come up with this flawless design that is like the most efficient outcome or a solution to this problem, you know. And like I'm sure I just have to look up YouTube videos because there's no way that my mind would work that way. But it definitely pushes me to like go back and redo it. And I mean, you don't have to like I said, you have like a list and you can go back. So you can just kind of, you solve a puzzle, you can go on to the next one. But then like, you know, if 8 months from now you're like, oh, I really want to solve that one puzzle way long ago, you know, you can just go back to it and no big deal and just start over again. Or it won't start over, but like you can see what you did and then you can go ahead and edit what you've done and try and move it around and stuff. But it's a lot like programming because in order to make your little solution to work, you know, like you have an arm that can pick an element up and move it around and all that stuff. And so in order to make the arm move, you have to program it in a sense, meaning like you have these little boxes that are commands basically, and it says pick up, move, rotate, and drop. Like those are like the basic commands. So you would have to if you place an arm to pick up an element on the screen, your arm will be listed as like line 1, and on line 1 you'd have to pick up pick up is the command, pick up or grab. And then you'd have to from there dictate where the arm goes by saying, okay, well now I want it to rotate twice counterclockwise so that I can place it over here in this slot. And then you'd have to do the reverse, you know, well now it has to go back to pick up the next element and like go clockwise twice and then grab, you know, and then you can repeat that one line of code. So it does that, you know, going back and forth all day. So it's really interesting and it gets really complex like that. But it's so simple. It's the way it's presented, the way that you are introduced to, like through the tutorial and everything, and just learning how the world works. It's so easily digestible because I'm not a programmer. I hate math. I hate these kind of things, but this Opus Magnum, and I feel like most of Zachtronic games probably, because I think I played Shenzio, and it was kind of the same thing. But anyway, it's so easy to understand, and it just makes me feel so smart. Like the aha is definitely well worth it, or like just so empowering to me. But yeah.
So I'm completely new to this series and just to this designer. I've never played any of his games, but while you've been talking through it, I've been looking through sort of the Steam page and looking at some of the different pictures and stuff. And I'm getting definitely a very distinct vibe of The Incredible Machine. I don't know if either of you played that. That was the first video game that I ever played. It was like an engineering game for probably the Windows 95. It was on like a floppy disk, if that takes you back. It may have been a Windows 93 game earlier. I don't know. But it had a sort of a similar conceit, not in that you were programming pieces of it, but essentially you were given a series of objects and you had to get something from point A to point B, and you basically were making sort of a Rube Goldberg machine. And so it was, you know, there was a fan would move a pulley which would push the object to this thing where it would fall in the funnel. You know what I mean? It was a very similar kind of like, how efficiently can you solve this basic logic and engineering puzzle? And I'm wondering if this is almost like kind of a newer iteration of that sort of spirit. Definitely
what you just described there. I haven't heard of the game, but what you just described is literally what it is. Because if you look at GIFs or videos or just pictures even of this game, you're like, wow, it looks like a machine. Like, this is so weird, you know? Because you think of alchemy as like, I don't know, magic and like just, I don't know, like, there's so many alchemical references to what alchemy really is, and then you see this and you're like, wow, it's like a machine. It's just a assembly line going on. And I don't know, it's really interesting that you'd say that, or that you'd think of that game. It sounds like this game, honestly. So
I'm interested in hearing, because there does seem to be some kind of story in the game, and I'm wondering if it's actually well developed and how you've reacted to the parts that you've seen so far.
So yeah, there definitely is story, and I actually kind of like how the way that they lay out the story. It's just like almost you're in a chat room you the player aren't typing, but you're just kind of clicking through the dialogue of Concordia Lem and her friend Anastasius.
I have a question real quick.
Yes.
So the main character is taking odd jobs. They have a lot of student debt, I'm assuming, and they're in a chat room. Are they a millennial? Where do they fit in this?
Yeah.
I can't definitely say. It's funny that you say that, but I can't.
It's the gig economy at work.
I know.
Exactly. You're working for Uber.
Now that you probably say that, they probably are millennials. I didn't get a millennial vibe though. Like I mean, I guess I found them relatable to me as a young person who freshly, graduated college a few years ago. And I'm not working like what I want to do, but like I'm just doing what I can to get by. And so like I related to that in that way, but I didn't. They're not buying avocado toast and saying, well, I don't have enough money to make this transmutation thing for this person because I bought too many avocado toasts, or no, I don't have enough cereal to.
Do they use emojis?
No, there's no. So not that I have seen yet. There's no emojis. It's pretty much just straight on dialogue, but it's presented to you like as a chat room. And so it's just really interesting because it's just back and forth, and they say like there's humor and stuff inside of it, like I'm gonna say her Cordelia, but Concordia, she equates alchemists to wizards, and her friend gets like super hot about it. He's like, we're not wizards. Wizards is magic, and alchemy is science. And how could you say that? And like, just like, okay. And she's like, okay, dude, like, calm down. Like, listen, we're wizards because we're alone in a tower and dark torch lit tower. Dark room, scraping away blood, sweat, and tears into our alchemy. Like, we're basically wizards. And he's like, that's I can't believe you. And anyway, it's funny, but
Is there a larger conflict, or is it?
No,
more...
it's just it's a funny little quip thing. I made it sound I added some flair to it, but no, it's just a little funny quip thing. So.
But overall, is there like a larger conflict or story? Or is it kind of just like, hey, day in the life?
Yeah, no, not that I've encountered quite yet. I could totally, if it does, like eventually, like a bad guy is introduced, and I literally have to go save the world by doing alchemy. That would be cool, and I could totally see it doing that because it does kind of present this game as I don't want to say steampunk, but that is the vibe I get. But like, it's not steampunk because it does kind of have a little bit of magic to it, and steampunk is definitely more industrial, and that's not really what this is. It's just, I don't know. Like, if anything, I feel like it's more like Avatar: The Last Airbender feel to it than anything else,
Gotcha.
So, but
dog little girl transmutation in this game. They're avoiding Nina episodes at this point.
Yeah, no, that's not happening. No.
Okay, good.
Not to my knowledge, not that I'm aware of. Like I said, I'm only like 3 hours in, but yeah, for right now, for the most part, it's basically just doing requests or odd end jobs. But who knows? Maybe in future chapters there will be like some uprising of some sorts. Maybe wizards will come out, and it'll be alchemists against wizards, and I have to solve these transmutation things, or else the wizards win. I don't know. But we'll see. So. It'd be cool, but there is definitely the writing so far is pretty great. So I just get a lot of characterization through the little text that I have. So, but anyway,
that sounds fun.
Yeah, I definitely
appreciate when there's a story to my puzzle games.
Yeah, and I haven't played a really good puzzle game since Gorgoa, so
yeah,
like it's just nice. So.
Sometimes you just need a brain break now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, sometimes I open up a game and I'm just like, I can't physically do this right now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you have to have your kind of, I don't know, popcorn kinds of games where you can kind of sit at it for a little while and not feel as overwhelmed. You know what I mean? I feel like this sounds like something that would be good for that.
Yeah. I mean, like, you can take all the time you need and just kind of sit there. Like I said, I've sat there for 30 minutes and like, barely made any progress because I'm like, man, how am I going to lay this out, to work? And it's just wild.
You know, the new Spider-Man game has puzzles that sound sort of super superficial, not at all with the depth that this has, but they also do sort of like science puzzles so that you can figure out stuff. I don't know. It's like a weird mini game that just is in the new Spider-Man game.
Yeah, this game, it honestly, it does feel like one big like hacking game, you know, like just one after another. You're just kind of figuring out how to access something by doing something, and that's kind of how it is. And it, you know, it does work like a machine. But I don't know. I haven't played the Spider-Man game even. You know, I saved my money for Red Dead, so Spider-Man had to wait, and I've only heard good things about that game too. But I'm always down for puzzles though. So
you should play Obra Dinn.
I'm so excited to hear about Obra Dinn. Please tell me about it.
I saw the trailer for that game, and I was like,
yes,
this is right up my alley. Holy hell. But you have been playing it.
At?
Yeah.
So the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, somewhere off the coast of Africa. So I don't know. Did you guys play the demo that came out? I want to say in maybe 2014-ish. A demo came out, really early development stuff. It was maybe right around the time that Lucas Pope, who did Papers, Please, and obviously did The Return of the Obra Dinn, it was like right after Papers, Please had come out, and he had been working on Obra Dinn, and he released like maybe the first chapter-ish as sort of a demo, and I think that was the last that we saw of it. It kind of went the way that Gorogoa did, where it came out with this like really incredible demo, and then that was it for 5 years.
I've been staying like completely heads down in this game. Like I've watched a little bit, but I've been waiting to hear from someone I know and trust to kind of get an idea of what's going on with it. So
I had just learned of this game literally as it released, and I was like, oh my god, fuck, it's Papers, Please, but different. And it's just like, oh, I needed to play this game, and I haven't yet. So I totally didn't know it was a thing until recently. So
Obra Dinn, The Return of the Obra Dinn, it's a game by Lucas Pope, who I said he did Papers, Please most famously. I think it's been in development for 5 or 6 years. Just one guy. He did everything himself, including the music, save for localization and, you know, like voice acting and stuff like that. But he did the whole game, and which is obviously why it took so long. But it's quite fascinating. If you've played Papers, Please, it's not quite the same, but it still has that level of tedium that I feel like he recreates very well. So there's sort of a level of, I don't even know what you would say. It's kind of exhausting as a game. You play an insurance adjuster who is sent to what remains of the Obra Dinn to figure out what happened to its crew. It was supposed to dock. It had 60 people aboard, and not one of those 60 people made it. And so armed with this book full of, you know, information like the crew record, the sort of ship plans, some photos of people in the crew, and a pocket watch that lets you travel in time, you have to figure out everyone on the ship and then what happened to them. That's sort of the general conceit. So that is much easier said than done. This is a game about minutia to the greatest detail. It is not clear who a lot of people are. They do not give you many clues. A lot of it comes down to context, who that person was with. Sometimes it comes down to literally like process of elimination sometimes. There's a level of ambiguity to it as well, especially in terms of how people die. It's really fascinating. I have never played another game like it. It's hard to explain more without obviously sort of spoiling it, but a lot of really bad shit goes down on this boat. A lot of people die in really horrific and tragic ways. Some of it has to do with infighting among the crew, and some of it has to do with some otherworldly shit that comes kind of down upon them. But it is just so strange to play a game literally about being an insurance adjuster and then at the end receiving like the actual claim and seeing how much money each person got depending on what they did on the boat. It is just like, but that to me comes so much from the Papers, Please sort of background. It's a different sort of emergent story, whereas Papers, Please was kind of unfolding as you were playing, and the choices that you were making as to how to interact with the people that you were letting through or not letting through was giving you kind of a storyline as to your role within Aristotska. Whereas this, there is a defined story. It's told out of order as well. So one of the first bodies that you find is one of the last people that died on the boat. And so not only are chapters told out of order, but each piece of each chapter is often told out of order, and a lot of chapters are told backwards. So it requires you to revisit concepts over and over and over again and, follow people's motions. And I've seen it compared a lot to Sudoku, where you're kind of extrapolating from the information that you have. And so that's a very key thing, I think, to think about going into it, is think of it like Sudoku.
So one of the questions I have, because when I'm hearing it, it sounds a lot like her story in terms of like maybe you have free range of this space and you're just kind of gathering information and need to like, reverse engineer this puzzle by like taking notes and trying to see everything. Do you have all of the information available to you right at the get-go and it's kind of just you putting together the pieces, or does it unlock new parts of the game as you find new things?
It unlocks. So to give you kind of an example, I'll spoil a little bit the first chapter because that's sort of the end. The first chapter is literally called The End. It's the last chapter in the book, but it's the first one that you're greeted with. And so the only body that you run across is just one. So in interacting with the bodies, you use this magical, pocket watch thing that you have on them, and it transports you right back to the final moments of their death. So you get to be a participant in the scene. The scene is frozen, so you'll see how they die. The scene will be frozen, and then you can walk around kind of a pared down area right around them. So you can see the people that are in the immediate vicinity. You can see what other people are doing. You can kind of zoom in on different people. You can cross-reference your maps to figure out sort of where you are, where people are coming from. But there's instances where the deaths will open up other bodies. So, for example, you'll find a body, and then when you're viewing that person's death scene, there's like another body someplace else that's dead for another reason or had recently died or something like that. And then you can unlock their body to then view their death, and you can kind of jump around in time that way. Pieces of the ship also open up based on these memories. So using the first chapter as an example, the first body that you find opens up the door to the captain's quarters, where you find 2 more bodies, which then opens up another door where you find 2 more bodies. One of those bodies opens another chapter, which gives you access to additional bodies within that chapter. So you kind of are just jumping all over around in time. So the game gives you everything that you need. Like, essentially, once you've sat through each of the deaths on the boat, the game gives you everything you need to identify who those people are and how they died. The minutia of figuring that out is what gets a little bit more tedious, because there's some people that are really obvious, like the captain, for example. Some of the first mates, like the first, second, third mate, fourth, pretty much anybody with a really big hat is very easy to identify because they all tend to go together. And, like the stewards of the mates tend to hang out with them, and people tend to hang out in the places where they're like directly employed. But then you have to get down to like, what accent does that guy have? What language is he speaking? What is an identifying thing on him? Is it a tattoo? Is it a peg leg? Is it something, here that can help me figure out who he is? And then it gets even further down into like, was this person seen with an object that might figure out who they are? So there is a character who has an object. I don't want to spoil what it is, but it's something that basically no other person could be this guy because of this object that he carries with him. And that's it. And so you will feel a little racist. I felt a little racist because there were times where I couldn't quite tell people's nationalities apart, especially when it came to like, there are 5 Chinese topmen, and it's like, which one is which one? Because like none of them talk, and one of them is in one seat, and then some of them die early, and it's like, it gets a little like, I feel bad that I'm guessing at these people's nationalities, and I'm like guessing which one is which. So it's not a game that I felt super great about when I walked away, because I definitely felt like an asshole.
That's
and it will
interesting.
get very tedious. Like I spent 6.5 hours playing it. I've heard people play upwards of 9. It definitely requires a lot of time and effort and energy, and I think, you know, jumping back into some of the memories is not always as easy as I would like it to be, but Lucas Pope has set up this really interesting cross-referencing system. So if there's a person in the book that you can't figure out who they are, it'll tell you which memories he or she appears in, and then you can bookmark those memories so you can kind of hop around between time. So you can follow that person's movements from sort of the early parts of the book where everything is pretty hunky-dory to the later parts of the book where everything is terrible and on fire. So you can cross-reference in that way, but I recommend taking notes or having a little bit of a notepad. There's lots of really little items that will give you hints as to where people end up that I think are quite important. So it's a game. It's incredible that somebody made this, because just the logic that would have to go into it is just absurd. Just absurd.
You know, hearing you talking about it kind of reminded me of Tacoma, honestly, where you're literally...
It is a little...
Okay. I mean, obviously it's different because it's not, but I mean, like, it just sounds a little bit like it because you're this person investigating a ship. I think literally in Tacoma, you're an insurance claim person too, aren't you? Or I can't remember exactly. I know you're just someone inspecting the ship, but whatever. Regardless, that's pretty cool though. I definitely need to check it out. I've seen it and I'm like, ooh, spooky ghost ship. Like, let's find out what's going on. But I'm happy to hear that it's a detective game because it's another puzzle game and I love puzzles. So I definitely want to check it out. And I love the aesthetic of it too. Where it's...
Yeah.
I mean...
And you can choose your monitor. So, you know how it's I don't know how you would even...
Or you can change the look of it?
It was like a 1-bit kind of color scheme.
Yeah. And you
like
can change the color scheme based on a different monitor. So you can change it to like a Commodore 64 or like an IBM or a, you know, whatever. And it changes the color scheme around a little bit in a really interesting way. And that's just like you can tell this dude knows his shit because it's very bespoke. It's very well designed in every kind of piece.
Lucas Pope is pretty great. So at least
it definitely feels like an art game. I know people feel really, I don't know, I feel like that gets people's like sort of hackles up when I say that, you know, I'm sort of the games are art camp. But this feels a lot like a game as an art. I don't know if Lucas Pope would agree with me, but it feels like one of those things where like you could not quite tell the story if it wasn't a game. And I think it's interesting to take the tedium or the monotony of a job, like, you know, you're a customs agent or you're an insurance adjuster, and then use that as a vehicle to marry, you know, having to figure out all this stupid shit that happened on these boat with these people went absolutely obscene crazy, in order to file a claim for them, but then also unravel a story that is sort of, I don't know, it's one part pirate shanty, one part Lovecraftian horror nightmare. And so I don't know, I think the pairing of that is very interesting, and that's sort of to me what I always think of when I think of the like, is a game an art? And I think yes, especially when it comes to games like this.
So one of the concerns that I have when I think about Papers, Please was that the tedium had a message, or like the tedium had, like, it told a story about that world, and like you could make choices that would kind of, you know, influence that world and let you play an active role in it. Does this game actually, does the tedium serve a purpose in your opinion? Like, you kind of walking around unpacking everything, like, does it feel rewarding? Like, are you having a good time with it? And can you make choices? Like, is there any element of the game that like, oh, hey, because you did this, you can now, you know, have this kind of branching path from what you've seen?
So it's a good question. To the second part of your question, there are 2 endings that are determinate based on sort of how much effort you're willing to put in. So if you choose to, there's a point at which once you've seen all of the deaths on the boat, like you've seen all the memories that are on the boat, a storm will start up and the game will kind of tell you like, you know, finish your business here and then leave. So if you are stuck or you couldn't figure something out or you were just like, I don't know about what happened to these people, whatever, and you get off the boat and you don't finish the book, you get an ending that's not that great.
Bad end.
And it's not like it's a bad end. It just is sort of like, wow, you could have done better, and maybe somebody else who really, gave a shit could figure this out. But if you are able to figure out all of the deaths that happen on the boat, I want to say there are 58 that you can figure out before you leave. The game offers an additional chapter. So at the beginning of the game, there is a chapter of the book. I think it's chapter 8. There are 10 chapters, where you are explicitly told, if you return this book to the guy who sent you here, he will give you the item that is necessary to find out what happened in that chapter. And that chapter is kind of the one that sort of explains, it's the tying of all the pieces together. It's sort of the why everything is going on chapter. So if you do take the time to solve all those murders before you leave and before you kind of reach that end game, then you are able to get that final piece of what happens to these final 2 people that you're left with. And then also, what was the root cause for all of the stuff that really went down. So it rewards you for your tenacity. And the nice thing is that when I got off the boat and I got the bad ending, because I was thinking that something in that chapter was going to tell me who some of these people were, or what happened to them. And then I got the bad ending. I thought like, oh shoot, it took me through the credits. It's got me back to the homepage. I was like, damn. But it will let you rewind in time, so you can keep all the work that you've done. So that you don't have to do it over again. So to that end, I feel like the game knew how tedious it was to do. I thought it was fun up until a point where it kind of wasn't. And there was a part where I just started guessing. Like, I literally just had to start kind of guessing what happened to people or guessing who people were. And, I don't feel like I did too much of that, but there were some people that were just like, it's either this guy or this guy, and they're the same person, basically. So, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Here's hoping. So that piece, I think, towards the end, I started to feel kind of like, wow, I really want this to be over. I just really want to get that final chapter.
Yeah. Are there stakes in the game? Like, I feel like in Papers, Please, you had a family. You were trying to, like, watch out for them and also, like, take care of your country and stuff like that. Whereas in this, it's like, you're kind of a neutral observer. And do you really have, like, any kind of investment in those people?
None, really. I think the game tries to give you an investment in these people because of the fact that you see them die. And for a lot of characters, when you see them die, that's not actually when you see the thing that happened to them happen to them. So there'll be instances where people like bleed out over parts of the chapter where someone had stabbed them earlier. There's a lot of kind of interrelationship stuff where people get angry that this person hurt my brother, so I'm going to kill you. And then somebody else shoots them. And, there's kind of when these outside forces are interacting with people on the boat, then people really start to kind of lose it. People's relationships start to fall apart. People are making really bad decisions. So I feel like that is kind of where it wants you to find meaning. And I think that's where it wants you to find value in the experience. But there is really no driving force other than your own curiosity to solve it, basically.
Gotcha.
And I don't know if it does it well. I think it does. The game will give you all of the deaths that are available at the beginning of you get to see everything, because you have to choose from a list of people and a list of deaths. And so some of the deaths are so outrageous that you're kind of like, what? Like, when is that going to happen?
Huh.
And I think watching people's interpersonal relationships unfold was really interesting, but that's a boat with, 60 of the people, I would say 56 of them were men who all look the same. So there was a level of just like, I don't know who these guys are anymore.
Well, it sounds like, I think that game is definitely a looker, and it sounds like it's going to be an interesting... I'm really excited to see how people react to this game, because it seems like it's taken a long time to come out, and like Lucas Pope has that pedigree.
Yeah.
I just really do wonder how much I'm going to care about it in the end, considering that it does kind of sound like it can get tedious,
Yeah, it's very compelling in the early game is what I will say. And I got lost in it, sort of the way that you get lost in it felt a lot like the one more turn syndrome for Civ, where I just kept playing and playing and thinking like, well, maybe I can find this one, or maybe I know who this guy is, or, da-da-da-da-da. And I think it really was when I started to get burnt out was when I had opened all the chapters and I'd only solved 30 of the 60 deaths, and I was like, oh boy, now what?
Oh no.
So I would say if both of you go in blind, I would say try to figure out as much as you can while you're going through it, because the more deaths that you can solve by the end of getting sort of all of the memories, the better off that you're going to be, I think, in terms of your engagement factor. Because once you run out of deaths, it's like, well, here I am on this boat with all these dead people, and somewhere in here are the answers, and I just don't even know.
Are there jump scares?
So, no.
Okay, cool.
There are not.
I will play the game then.
I will say I was startled by a noise used as like a menu item at one point, but I was not expecting. So the game will give you kind of a tutorial as you're playing it. It's pretty humorously written. Like it's very, it tends to sort of be like, great, you solved your first death. You could be wrong though. It will validate the people and their deaths in sets of 3s when you get them right. So you can't just like take a bunch of guesses and hope for the best. You have to kind of be strategic about how you do it. There was one sound that startled me when the first time I got the 3 right. It just kind of goes like, duh. And then I was like, oh, I don't know why. I was very tense. It's just a sound. It's not really that big of a deal. But no jump scares because there's no animation.
Oh, really?
Well, it's first person, but you see the deaths like a freeze frame. It's like playing the world's longest Where's Waldo game.
Huh.
Oh, okay. I thought there was like an animation to the deaths. That's interesting.
No, so you just see them in their final moments. So each of their final moments is preceded with a bit of dialogue, usually. Sometimes it's just screaming. That's done over a black screen, sort of like a silent movie. So you see the text on the screen, it's kind of a black screen, and then when the screen goes up, you see a freeze frame of the death. And that's it. And you can walk around the scene. It'll usually give you maybe about, 30 seconds to kind of walk around before it will sort of drag you into your book, open it, give you all of the information, the dialogue, the location on the ship, the pictures of people who were there, and then the person, and it gives you the option like, who is this and how did they die? And then once you close the book, it'll spit you back into the memory and you can walk all around and look at everybody and stuff like that. So it's definitely very, very fascinating. I would say it is one of the better games that I've played this year, maybe one of the best games that I've played this year, despite the tedium. I think I really liked Tacoma, but I feel like, I don't know, this is a completely different, it's just so strange, because it is a very similar mechanic of going back in time and reliving people's conversations, but it's just such a interesting way to go about doing it. And there is a sort of a secret achievement that is sort of it was a funny addition. I don't want to spoil it because it kind of requires having played the whole game, but it definitely is a little tongue-in-cheek in itself and kind of acknowledges like, oh, well, okay, like, really, this is what happened. So, I don't know, it's worth playing. I don't want to spoil it because there's just so much, like, I was constantly in awe of how stuff just kept getting worse and worse and worse and worse. So know that the first series of murders is not even close to how bad it can possibly get.
That's dark.
I know.
I'm excited to see where that goes. The murders.
It was good. I feel like I was just saying I was really wanting a detective game, and I think, Tyler, you were saying kind of comparing it to that, because I was about ready to go back to Murdered Soul Suspect, which is like the shittiest tier version of this, which I still loved.
I have that game. I never touched it. I was like, oh, it's gonna be so cool, and then I just it's backlog. I don't know. You
should play it. It's really bad, but you should play it because it's great. It's like a junk food game to me. Like, it's just so good, but it's just so awful.
Yeah.
But not even like fun awful like Alan Wake.
Right.
But, like,
it's just all around.
Just awful.
Don't you dare besmirch Alan Wake in this podcast.
Alan Wake is amazing.
But you know what I mean? Yeah. It's like you know how it's like fun, campy Alan Wake? Mm-hmm. It's like not that.
Oh.
It's like it wishes it was that, but did not. And like the guy has a fedora. I don't know. Anyway, play Murdered Soul Suspect. I guess that's my final thought on Obra Dinn.
Wait, one final thought. Final thought. How long? You beat it, right? So how long?
I believe my end clock time was about 6.5 hours.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I watched, after I played most of it, I watched the Giant Bomb quick look on it, and I know that Ben Pack was saying that some people he'd heard had taken up to 9 hours to play it. It's definitely not a fast game. You can sort of cheat if you feel like if you just kind of run out of patience with it. I don't recommend doing that because it doesn't feel good. There's some good like hint along guides that will give you an idea of like if you just are you have no idea like how this person is involved, it'll kind of point you in the direction of like, oh, look at what their objects are carrying, like look at what was on them, or somebody mentioned something, which will kind of give you an idea of where to look. So if you ever get stuck, I recommend the hint along guide that's on Steam was an interesting way to play it. So it's like Sudoku. It's basically Sudoku but with people. It's people Sudoku.
Well,
except they don't give you any numbers to start with. Like, you have to figure everything out from the start, so.
Well, I'll have to play it and just get back to you on it, I guess. It sounds fun. I really want to play it, too. So.
Yeah, I recommend it. It's a different kind of puzzle game, I think, but knowing, especially Tyler, that you were talking about puzzle games today and that you were looking for that kind of experience, I'd be really interested to hear what you think of Obra Dinn and if it scratches that itch in the same way that you feel like Opus Magnum does. Because they're totally different. Yeah,
we'll have to see. But you know what game is not like a puzzle? Dark Souls.
Oh, that's right. So you did get to play it on Switch,
I did.
right?
Yeah, I've played it.
We all have the Solaire amiibo, and none of us have the game except Tyler, who only has one amiibo. Yeah. Wait, how did this happen? This feels wrong.
So I've been playing the Dark Souls version or Switch version. And I know there's reports saying like, oh, there's performance issues and yada yada, and maybe there is, but like I haven't encountered it. The only thing that I've encountered that it still has its same jankiness that the originals had. The only time I encountered something that was like questionable was when I was in the valley with the blue drakes, like where the four kings are.
Oh, the valley. It's the
valley of drakes. Yeah. So,
I think so.
But specifically, I went down to where the blue drakes are, and like for whatever reason, I went down there, and I'm like level, I don't know, like 15 or something. So I'm like super not supposed to be there, but I go there anyway because Master DS player, Dark Souls player. And I try to fight the blue guy, the blue dragons. And or drakes, I guess, and the first one totally like just clips itself off the ledge and dies, and I'm like, okay, cool. And then the second one does the same thing, like goes into the mountain where I can't attack it, and then like a second later I get souls for doing nothing, and I'm just like, okay.
Perfect.
Yeah, perfect. And then
it sounds like it's the best version of Dark Souls.
So I mean, but up until that point, though, I really hadn't encountered anything that was like, weird or game breaking or not behaving properly that I could tell anyway. So it's all been pretty much the same experience so far, and I definitely love it. I will say, so this time, I usually like, knowing everything that I know, I should like select the master key and like be able to go to different places early. But I didn't do that this time. I just selected a knight build and I'm going strength this time because it's just so much easier. And like I got a little lost after like ringing the first bell. I was like, I don't know where to go next. I know that I have to go defeat this one guy down below where the thieves are. But I don't know how to get there or what to do, and like I just had to run around, and I totally forgot about the sewers, and so that's still there. Like even though I've played this game for like 800 hours, over the course of 3 different releases, like I still got lost without having to look things up. So that's good.
It's just your mind is trying to force you to never go to Sen's Fortress ever again.
Yeah. Well, I love Sen's Fortress,
though. It doesn't exist if I don't remember it, though, right?
Right. That's true. Yeah. So I've been playing that, and it's pretty good. I really want to play it with you all, and we both should play it with Olivia. I really want Olivia
I'll beat the fuck out of this game, and you guys will be left in the dust. I'm going to become best friends with that dog with the sword in its mouth. Have a great time. I don't know anything about Dark Souls. I remember there's a dog with a sword in its mouth. And that's all I've really got.
There is.
That's true.
There is. So you are correct about that. No. I believe we had a conversation about doing a coaching stream, correct?
Yeah.
We were going to set Olivia loose on, I think it was Bloodborne we were talking about, and then we would be the helpful
Okay.
Could we even be helpful, or would we just be like, you don't want to go in there?
I would love to workshop this.
Well, I guess you can.
Because I kept thinking like, oh, we should start with the PS3 one, like I was saying earlier. But
Demon Souls.
Yeah, Demon Souls. But this is a fool's errand, right? Like we should just go right
Well,
to Bloodborne or Dark Souls.
I would.
So I don't know if Demon Souls is going to be the same play style as Dark Souls. Like I'm really scared to play that for the first time ever with not knowing anything, because Dark Souls. Listen, okay, you don't know. Souls games are fucking scary the first time around when they get released, because you don't know shit, and you're just like, anything could be around the corner, Olivia. Anything could be around the corner. You don't know.
You don't know anything about Kingsfield, Tyler. You got to join me with the OG FromSoftware nightmare. We'll play that one game with the president, who's
my gosh.
And then we'll bring the dog in. It's going to be a whole mess. We're going to do the
Metal Wolf Chaos.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, that one.
So there's already a wolf in the name. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't think it's the same thing, but I would love to do that though. I'd love to play any game together. Like just
I think it was an Idle Thumbs stream where he had the little internalizing meter on the screen, and I thought that was the best shit. So I want to do something. I want to have a bunch of little monitors, like a heart rate monitor, maybe my glucose levels. Just get a bunch of weird hookups to and get it on the screen. I think that would be amazing. And I have you guys in my ear, like a Metal Gear mission, talking to me. I think we can make this happen.
They played us like a damn fiddle.
A weapon to surpass the wolf with a sword in its mouth.
I
think that's a good place to call it.
I think that's a podcast right there. All right. So that was the Greetings from Podcast. We're available now in syndication. While our podcasts are sold completely for free, and at greetingsfrom.zone. My name is Rebecca Faye. You can find me online at Rebecca Faye. It's pretty easy. Olivia, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter at LivJQ or on Twitch at LivJQ.
Perfect. Tyler, where are you at?
You can find me at WorldJumpin' on Twitter, and please don't forget to subscribe, comment, rate us everywhere.
Smash that like button.
Yes, please, because that really helps us out. At least in the starting phase. We really care, honestly, otherwise, but we want to be a little we just want to be on the page. You know what I mean? We don't want to be blasting our social feeds all day and night trying to get people to listen to us. So
yeah, and you can like us on Facebook at Greetings From Cast and follow us on Twitter at Greetings From PC. Was that it?
Yes, Greetings From PC, because things got difficult.
Twitter's a bunch of assholes and they don't have more than 12 characters, so I had to get a little creative when I made that name. Apologize.
Coming for you, Jack Dorsey. Make our name longer.
Yeah. Just send him screenshots of your sleep app on your iPhone. Well, I don't know about you, Jack, but I'm sleeping awful. See you next time.
Bye.